Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and I'm not sure if this is going to be a main channel video or a second channel video. We're going to be talking about the fact that this beautiful bright green Bronco Raptor is going to get crunched. Yes, that is right. Before we get into this video though, first and foremost, if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. Let's get into it. So on the surface, this looks like a normal Ford Bronco Raptor, and it looks like there's nothing wrong with this whatsoever. It's an eruption green Bronco Raptor, and you'd think that Ford would want to keep this and not crunch this, but that is not the case. And just to show you guys like how production this is, even though this is a pre-production car, like look, we've got the cool hood vent here at the top, and you can see here we don't have like crazy panel gaps or anything like that that you would think that you would see in a pre-production unit. It has everything you'd want. This piece right here does keep popping out a little bit, I will mention that, but my F-150 Raptor that is a full production car, because well I own it, has that issue as well. And this has all the features that the Bronco Raptor is going to have. It's got the marker lights here on the front end, you've got the fog lights down below, the skid plate action, the 37s, you've got the crazy beefed up suspension and Fox shocks. You guys can see it's got the side steps. Like, this is actually like a fully loaded Bronco Raptor. And so again, on the surface, you think that Ford would want to keep something like this. You got the taillights, everything's fully functional, by the way. Like, let me pull out the key fob here so you guys can see that the lights, like the lights all work. I can do a remote start on this. The remote start didn't work. Let's try it again. Okay, so we're gonna lock it. We're gonna lock it. As soon as I say everything works, the remote start doesn't work. What the heck? Okay, lock. Oh, there we go. It just took a sec. It was just being finicky, okay? The remote start does in fact work, okay? And then if we go from that to, look at that, marker lights all work, to the interior, this doesn't have a weird, wacky interior. This is like, you would be mistaken if you thought that this was like, you could like mistake this for a full production unit because of the quality of everything inside. Like, look at this. And it even has a VIN number. It's got like a legit VIN number right there as well. It's got all the stickers. And by the way, this is a hefty boy. So payload capacity, 1,074 pounds. Gross vehicle weight rating, 6,850. So you subtract that, and you get like 5,770, something like that. So this weighs as much as an F-150 Raptor. Take that in for a second. And look at that, we got the carbon fiber package. These are the vinyl seats, so they're not the highest end seat you can get, but these are the seats I'd recommend because they're more comfortable than the seats that have the Alcantara inserts. And these are also easy to clean because there's no perforations or anything in them. But if we start it up, we got this full digital gauge cluster. Look at the steering wheel, like everything works. Even the turn signal, by the way, for half the week of me having this, the turn signal made no sound. But now it makes the sound. I don't know why it like randomly stopped working. I've never had that happen with any of my Fords before, but again, this is a pre-production car. It even has the R mode. Look at this. Boom, I'm in R mode. And this is also like the racing gauge cluster, which is now my favorite gauge cluster view because it makes me feel like a race car driver. You have all the functions up here. So like, you guys can't see on the camera very well, but the stabilizer bar disconnect, the lockers, the trail turn assist, stability control, infotainment system. And notice we've got the whole backup camera set up right here. 360 camera system. I'm showing you guys every single feature because I'm trying to like prove my point that this is a perfectly fine vehicle that I think that a lot of you watching, if you had the opportunity to buy this from Ford, then you would buy this from Ford, even though it's been rallied by a bunch of journalists, and one of those journalists might have jumped it in some off-road situations in Colorado. Anyways, you guys can see here with the auxiliary functions here at the top, we've got the soft top, and this doesn't have any weird creaks or rattles. Like, it does kind of rattle a little bit in the back end, but that's like an old Bronco thing. However, if we look here at the window sticker, we don't have a price on this. And it also says vehicle not for sale. So basically it shows me the features of this Bronco Raptor. And again, it has a VIN number that you guys can look up. And it shows fuel, like it's been rated by the EPA and everything. But it's not for sale. So let's talk about what's going to happen to this Bronco Raptor. Now, you guys are wondering why this Bronco Raptor is going to get crunched, and the best way to explain this is to talk about the three different types of media vehicles that us car journalists get access to, and basically what happens to these different types of media vehicles. So the first type of media vehicle is a full production car, and that's actually most of the vehicles that we get as media. And what they are is basically what this Bronco Raptor isn't, even though this basically is a full production car. So basically a car that looks just like this, but it has a VIN number and a window sticker that has pricing on it, and it does not have vehicle not for sale on the window sticker. Again, it's a full production car that you could go into a dealership and buy, frankly. And so with these full production cars, what happens to them after media are done rallying the crap out of them and doing their journalism, articles, or videos, they get sold at auction. And so there are quite a few cars out there, and you might actually own a media car without even realizing it, that basically were rallied by journalists and then just sold to a regular person at auction. I think a really good example is there were several C8 Corvettes when the C8 Corvette came out in the media fleets, and those C8 Corvettes were full production cars. And so what happened when that whole media run was done with those C8 Corvettes is they were sent to auction, and then at auction, dealerships bought them and dealerships sold them. And some of these C8 Corvettes were sold for literally 2 times MSRP. Take that in for a second. A C8 Corvette with probably 5,000 to 10,000 miles on it, that was drifted a ton, that was just completely rallied for the first 5 to 10,000 miles of its life, was then sold to someone at a dealership for twice what the original MSRP was. Like, it's, and again, that's because our car market right now is crazy, supply and demand, all that kind of stuff. But the point that I'm trying to make is with these full production cars, they basically are just out and about in the world, and it's seriously, it's crazy to think about. Now, the next type of car is a pre-production car like this, where it's basically a full production car, but the manufacturer still calls it a pre-production car, and they don't plan on selling it when the media run is done. And what will happen with this Bronco Raptor, and this makes me kind of sad but then also happy at the same time, is this Bronco Raptor will be sent back to the factory, Ford's factory, and most likely taken apart, and then all the parts for this will be used when parts on future Bronco Raptors break and need to be covered under warranty claim or just need to be replaced. And so this won't be like wasted. Like, it won't be like sent to a junkyard and just like completely, you know, basically destroyed for scrap metal. It'll be used to help out with future Bronco Raptors, or potentially some of these parts might end up on like another Bronco Raptor being produced on the assembly line. Again, we have crazy supply chain issues. So it just depends. It's not like there is like a specific thing or like a specific like route that parts will go. It will just depend on like, you know, basically the quality of the part, right? Like if, for example, let's say like one of these paddle shifters right here. Let's say that one of them is like perfectly, like there's no wear and tear on it whatsoever, then there's a chance that that might end up on another, you know, Bronco in production. But let's say that there's something else like this steering wheel. You guys can see there's a little bit of like wear and tear from like people's hand oils on it. Then maybe something like the steering wheel will be used as like a replacement if something happens to someone's, where, you know, having one that's perfect won't necessarily be as important, right? So it just depends on the application and the quality of the part. There's a lot that goes into it. It's never simple. You know, you always want things to be simple, but they're not. Now, the last type of car is a pre-production car that's going to get crunched. Now, the reason why a pre-production car would get crunched is because it's like a very early pre-production car. So a really good example is you guys saw my video series on the Nissan Z. Now, that Nissan Z is one of the only Zs, like, well, sorry, I shouldn't say was one of the only Zs on the planet, and it was a very, very, very early build. And so that car, you know, although it was a very pre-production car, was pretty much like full production quality. Like, there were some quirks with it, but it was frankly a really nice car in my opinion. And so I think still someone would have probably bought that car, but it's not nice enough where Nissan would be willing to send it to auction, or nice enough where Nissan would be willing to part it out because of, well, partially because of probably the journalism abuse to the car, but also the fact that it's so early in production that probably half of the parts in that car will have something. I'm not saying that Nissan's unreliable. I want to make sure that we stay clear on that. But with early production cars, right, there are things that manufacturers are still figuring out. And so I'm sure there's a lot of parts in that car that they'll determine, oh, this needs to be tweaked, this and that, little things. But overall, they just don't want a car like that, or parts from a car like that, to end up to a customer, because they want to make sure that the car that a customer gets is of super high quality, if that makes sense. So hopefully that video enlightened you guys a little bit in terms of the whole situation with media cars, and I'm sure that I just created some nightmares for some people that have purchased used cars over the last little bit. They're like new model year cars but used, because now people are going to question whether or not that they just purchased a media car that may or may have not been just completely rallied. Don't worry, if it's like a Toyota Camry or something, you're fine. But if you happen to buy a Corvette and you got a really good deal on, or actually technically not a really good deal because 2 times MSRP is pretty crazy, just know that your Corvette might have been a race car in a past life. Anyways, I'll see you guys.